The bass vibrated through the floorboards, rattling the glass ornaments on the tree. Aplina, Vamp, Luna, Serena, and Sarah wove through the crowded living room, their laughter rising above the steady pulse of the music. Glasses clinked. Conversations overlapped in a blur of holiday cheer. Then, the house died. The power cut out, plunging every room into absolute, suffocating darkness. The music vanished, replaced instantly by a sharp metallic thud that echoed against the sudden silence. For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. Then, the lights flickered back to life, casting a harsh glare over the room. The party was gone. Mint lay motionless on the center rug. A single thin red mark traced a line across her neck. Vamp lunged forward, dropping to her knees beside the body. She grabbed Mint's shoulders and shook, shouting, "Mint, wake up!" But the body remained limp. The others stood frozen. Vamp pulled her phone from her pocket, her fingers trembling as she dialed for help. The silence in the room was absolute. Vamp kept the line open until the sound of heavy boots hit the porch. Tor burst through the front door, eyes scanning the room before she even stopped moving. She moved with purpose, pushing past the frozen guests to establish a perimeter around the rug. "Nobody touches anything," Tor commanded, her voice cutting through the lingering panic. She paced the room, checking the windows and locking the main entrance. While the others began to move, dropping to their hands and knees to comb through the carpet fibers, Sarah slipped away. She retreated into a quiet bedroom, shutting the door firmly behind her. She collapsed onto the bed, clicked on the television, and within seconds, her breathing deepened into an unnatural, heavy sleep. Back in the living room, the investigation intensified. Aplina, Luna, and Serena crawled across the floor, their fingers brushing against the hardwood and rug, searching for anything out of place. They checked under the sofa, behind the tree, and along the baseboards. Every movement was deliberate, every shadow inspected. Tor stood in the center, directing their search, her gaze fixed on the room as the group hunted for the first tangible lead in the dark. Tor moved to the desk, her movements sharp and efficient. She pulled the laptop into the light, her fingers flying across the keyboard with a rhythmic, mechanical intensity. She bypassed the security locks, the cursor blinking rapidly as she navigated through layers of hidden directories. She opened the primary partition of the hard drive and paused. "Look at this," Tor whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the cooling fan. She pointed to a list of files that had been marked for deletion. She clicked, and the screen flickered to life, displaying a series of corrupted video clips. The group crowded around the desk, leaning in as the grainy footage played. A figure in a dark hood moved through the hallway, clutching a heavy trophy. The image was distorted, the pixels shifting and tearing, but the movement was clear. The figure paused near the living room entrance. The camera caught a flash of light reflecting off a wrist. It was a distinct silver bracelet, catching the low light of the hallway. Aplina gasped. The room went cold. They knew that bracelet. It belonged to the victim's own daughter. The shock of the betrayal hit the group like a physical blow. The group did not wait for orders. They sprinted out of the house, boots pounding against the wooden porch before hitting the frozen grass. The night air was biting, sharp against their faces as they fanned out across the lawn. Ahead, a dark shape moved toward the garden gate, feet skidding on the frost. The suspect reached the low stone wall and vaulted over it, hoping to vanish into the shadows beyond. But the group had anticipated the path. Serena and Luna had already circled wide, pulling a heavy net trap from behind the thick hedges. As the suspect landed on the other side, the net swung out, wide and heavy. It caught her mid-stride, the cords tangling around her legs and torso. She tumbled forward, hitting the pavement with a jarring thud. The stolen bracelet clattered against the stone, a sharp, metallic sound. The group closed in, surrounding her in a tight circle. There was no room left to run, no path left to take. Tor stepped forward, her movements precise and cold. She pulled the handcuffs from her belt and locked them around the daughter's wrists with a sharp, final click. The suspect stopped struggling. She stared at the frozen ground, her face set in a mask of bitter resentment, refusing to meet the eyes of the group. In the distance, the low wail of police sirens began to rise, cutting through the night air. The group stepped back, their breath visible in the freezing dark. They watched as the flashing blue lights began to paint the garden walls. The immediate adrenaline faded, leaving behind the heavy, hollow weight of what had occurred inside the house. As the sirens grew louder, the group retreated toward the porch, leaving the suspect in the cold. The house stood silent behind them, a tomb for the evening that had been. The case was closed, but the quiet hum of the night air offered no comfort for the tragedy left in its wake.